2000 Kia Sportage V6. Got a bad alternator. The battery light came on earlier. The first thing I did is pull off my, put this out of the way so I can get to it, pull off my negative lead. And I pulled this cover off just to make it easier to see in here. You can see the alternator's down inside of there. I loosened the bolt right there, which if you put a wrench on it or a socket and start unscrewing it, it'll only go out so far, and then you hit the frame and then you're stuck, because now you can't turn the socket to reverse it. You have to get in there with a screwdriver and try to change the socket direction. So that will come out. But what I'm going to do is get in here to this tensioner, and should be able to put a 1/2-inch breaker bar or something on there and bend that over so that it takes the tension off of the belt. And right now that top one I have loosened, and what we did here is pulled the tire off, got that out of the way. There's a little plastic piece there, that splash guard that comes across here, which mine only had 2 of like 4 bolts in it, and so it was bouncing around and making noises, making me think my struts were bad. So it's good I got in there. And if we look in here, the alternator sits right back up in there. And so this bolt here I loosened, but you shouldn't have to take that out at all. In fact, it's a pain in the butt because the head is on the other side, the nut is on the side. And so there's a little hook there. And when you get this loosened up, what you do is just push the whole alternator up and unhook it and then bring it out. I've seen people take the CV axle out, which I'm hoping isn't going to be necessary, and even more brackets and things out of the way. So right now I'm at the point where I was just double checking these bolts and looking at YouTube and looking at manuals and making sure I'm on the right track. And then I'm gonna go see if I can loosen that belt and hopefully take the screws out of that alternator. One thing I can't get to, and I don't know how they got to it, is the wiring to be able to unhook it. I'll have to figure that out. So I'm looking up from the bottom at that tensioner, which is this piece here. It looks like where you would put the socket in here to pull this and release the tension on the belt. It looks like part of that's broken off, which is going to be a pain. But then what really disturbs me is looking at the alignment of the belt. Let's see if I can pull it in closer. The alignment of the belt. The belt's like halfway on that tensioner, and you can see from the marks that it's been riding up against the side and only halfway on the tensioner. So something isn't lined up right here with this guy. I have to replace that too. I don't know. Crazy. Okay, let's get up to date here. So I got the alternator just about out of the way. I had to pull the tensioner pulley out of there so that I could work with it getting replaced, because the tensioner pulley's broken and the pulley was out of alignment. Let's take a look at that a minute. So the tensioner pulley, this spot here, was broken right off where you put the socket in or a breaker bar to release the tension. So apparently it also threw the alignment off, because you can see where it's been wearing. The belt's been on the inside of the pulley against the housing of the engine and pretty much wearing the belt out on this one side, just eating it all to pieces there. So that was going to happen, have a breakdown later on. So what I'm doing now is trying to figure out how far into here I can get, because in one video, guy took out this CV joint and made room to get this in and out, which kind of makes sense. Another one, the guy took out this arm and tie rod and popped it off and moved it out to the back, which gave him more room, but I don't think I need to do that because this thing is more against this power steering tubing and bracket that were here, but I took the bracket out. So I'm gonna have to finagle around there, but my problem is I gotta get up inside there to get to the connectors and release the battery connector and the control. So I'm still not sure whether I'm gonna take this off or not. The other issue that popped up in the middle of all this is that we've got quite a bit of wear and tear on this. So really, to do it right would be to pop this one out here, pop this out here, unbolt these 4 bolts here, and then replace this lower control arm. But they're about 50 bucks. It's just adding up in cost. But I should probably do it because I got, it's July 2022 and my safety inspection is coming up. So I'm gonna have to get this inspected afterwards. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So here's the situation. I've got the alternator completely loose, all the wiring removed from it. I moved this power steering bracket out and pushed this back, and I just cannot get that alternator through the amount of space I have. So I'm gonna have to pull that CV axle off to do it. And after watching a variety of them on YouTube, I think basically what it involves is I'm going to loosen these 2 strut bolts and then strike this with a piece of wood so I don't damage it, and have that slip back this way so I can remove the CV axle from this side, and then it's a matter of being able to pry it back off of the transmission side. And that there's a tool for it. I've seen it done by prying or pounding on the inside into this direction from the driver's side, pushing it out. And I've even seen somebody tie a strap around it and yank on it enough times to get it out. So kind of just depends on how tight it is and whether I'll need to do that or not. Before I go and get tools, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try this way, where take these 2 bolts out, loosen that off, strike this through so it'll slip out, and then try yanking or prying on that guy. Otherwise, I will go get the tools from the auto parts store that they loan out. Okay, sorry about the fan. It's just so bloody hot out here. But I pulled off the 2 strut bolts here, used this wood block, pound against the CV axle, managed to break it loose, go in that direction. Next step is going to pull this out and remove that CV axle so that I can try to take it out from the transmission side. Okay, so I got up underneath there and struck this side with a pry bar a few times until it kind of snapped loose. Once it did loose, it came out. Pulled it out, and then the alternator's just wanting to drop right out now. It's got all kinds of room. Yeah, got that bugger out, but a lot of leaky oil up in there. Very, very filthy. So that means that alternator's been pretty much saturated with grease and grime all this time. Probably part of the reason it gave up. See if I can get up under there and clean it some. Let's just get in there and take a quick look closer. Yeah. And then all over the frame, all up in there. And when you go underneath, lift up into the compartment there. See, it's pretty greasy and grimy. So, let's see what I can do to clean this up a little bit before I put everything back in. I don't want to just kill the other alternator with a new, put a new alternator and just have it get coated in grease too. So that's where I'm at now. So here's an update on my Kia alternator swap. Got the nice new shiny alternator in over here. I didn't film this stage, but Jordan and I worked on getting that alternator up and in place. There's a bracket up here that it bolts to, and that bracket's bolted to the engine. I found out that you need to have the bracket left semi-loose so that you can get that bolt in for the alternator. Otherwise, it just doesn't want to work there. So I had to go get me a nice new 3/8 breaker bar to be able to move that tensioner. So the tensioner's got a brand new tensioner on there, nice and shiny too. Got all that in place, the belt's working in place, everything. The problem I'm having now is trying to get this CV axle back onto there. The splines should just line up and it should just slide in, but this side, it seems to have kind of some, let's see it there, at any rate, kind of a keyed slot to it on both sides, but there's nothing really on that side to match to that, so I don't know really what it wants to do. And it's really hard to hold it perfectly straight and in line to push it on, so I came up with this idea to strap it to a pipe, and then that way if we do need to tap it in, we can do that with the pipe. So we'll see if that works. Okay, so we set up that pipe. I had it strapped with some metal straps and then tie strapped, and then that way we were able to take the CV axle and get it in there and then tap on the pipe with a hammer, which would pull it from that point back there on, which worked pretty good. So once that came on, we put this end of the CV back, got our strut bolts hooked back up, this cable back up, got the rotor back on, and I just got a clip over here to hold this brake line and to put this caliper back on here, but I've got to torque this first, which is kind of variable as to what they say the torque should be for the spindle nut, but it's roughly 200 to 205 is kind of the average, so I'm going to probably do about 200 on it and put the locking pin back in. And then the other thing I'm stuck with is I got these two bolts that go for the caliper, but always the case. But then I've got a nut and a couple other bolts that I'm not sure where they go. This is the clip that goes on that bracket, or that brake line up there. Getting close, and all because the darn alternator failed. These CV axles are going to have to be changed at some point. This guy's going to have to be changed at some point, the control arms. But that's later on down the line if I still have this car. Okay, we kind of jumped the gun here, but we did get all the pieces back together. Got the axle nut torqued down, brake calipers on, torqued. Put everything back together there. Fixed a little plastic, put the splash guard. Put this piece back on here. Hooked back up the battery. Put the air filter back in place. Started it. No battery lights. We're going to check the voltage right now. See if we got good voltage. So 13.7, we're in there, we're in Lake Flynn.